I don't often get addicted to games the way I've been addicted to White Knuckle. Every now and then I like to try demos of games and see what the indie scene is cooking, but I never count on finding anything extraordinary. So when I booted up White Knuckle, I wasn't ready for 3 hours to have immediately passed, my hands shaking, face sweating, and I'm on my 15th run because I have to know what's at the top. Developed by Dark Machine Games, White Knuckle has you doing primarily one thing: climbing. While its core gameplay is what got me to like it, its diverse environments, eerie atmosphere, and world building made me not want to put it down. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start at the beginning. You play as an anonymous maintenance worker who just completed their orientation in this mysterious underground substructure, where you are shown the basics of climbing and how to use items. The voice over the intercom tells you that you are the first person to do so in 12,332 days, roughly 34 years, immediately filling the player's head with questions. What happened 34 years ago? Who am I? Where is everybody? And who is that voice over the intercom? And what are their intentions? All this information is never outright stated, but pieces of the narrative are slowly drip-fed as you climb higher through the facility. Speaking of climbing, the core gameplay is tight. Left click for your left hand, right click for your right, and you just grab any ledge, rope, handhold, chair, radio, little bug thing that you can reach to pull yourself up. If it's grabbable, it's indicated right next to your crosshair. The core gameplay being so simple makes the skill floor very low, so it's easy to pick up and feel like you know what you're doing, while at the same time getting the impression that there's much more to learn. The tactile feedback you get from grabbing a ledge is so satisfying, and the movement you get while hanging on to a ledge is fine-tuned to perfection. It's all physics-based, and everything feels earned. If you fall, that's on you. It's got that same brutally honest control scheme that makes these types of games so addictive. Each of your hands has a stamina bar for how long you can hang on to any ledge, forcing you to take breaks as you assess your next climb. This isn't your traditional stamina bar. It's shown through your hands slowly turning more red and creaking like a strained piece of wood about to snap. This helps keep the HUD very minimal and clean to help immerse the player. Your new workplace, Substructure 17, is soon to be found rather inhospitable as a dark black ooze filled with screaming faces quickly rises from the bottom of the facility and is showing no signs of slowing. Luckily, as an employee of Substructure 17, you've just passed your training course and now have all the tools at your disposal to outclimb the horrifying goop and make your way out of the silos. The silos being the lowest section of Substructure 17 and where your climb begins. The substructure is procedurally generated for each run, meaning new items, routes, and secrets for every time you make a new climb. Because you only get one shot at most things, it builds this constant, choking tension that ramps up like crazy the further you get. The majority of rooms can be traversed through the ledges and handholds you will find naturally, but you will also come across items that can help you make routes easier and even let you make your own path. Choosing where you place these items is just as important as deciding whether or not to use them at all, as the wrong placement can cost you a run, and sometimes it's better to save them for when you really need it. Substructure 17 also has a rampant drug problem, as you'll be able to find some performance-enhancing steroids, best used when the goop is getting a little too close for comfort. Non-perishable snacks can refill your stamina for those extra long climbs. Some items can have more uses than at first glance. For example, rebar can not only be thrown to create a handhold, but can also be thrown downwards to propel you for a higher jump, as well as having the ability to take out those pesky bugs. The grub can be squished to enable you to grab onto any surface, but can also offer emotional support in your last moments before the Class 7 fluid consumes you. I mean, just look at this little guy. Now these items are all useful, but none are as reliable as your trusty mallet. Used for hammering in pythons, dispatching bugs, smashing obstacles, and sometimes even hitching a ride, if you have the knack for it. It's always a good idea to keep this in a quick access slot, especially in the early game. Now with all these items, it would be only natural for you to have somewhere to store everything, right? Upon pressing tab and opening your inventory, again, you are met with a very minimalist but intuitive UI. You have one quick access slot for each hand, bound to Q and E respectively, and just an empty circle in between. In this area, you can physically place items you find, which immediately reminded me of the inventory organization of the Resident Evil franchise, where you have to sort out your items on a grid-based system. This inventory, however, is limited both by space and weight. If you hoard every item you find, the slower you climb, run, and jump, making management key to a successful climb. Everything in this core gameplay loop is complemented incredibly by the atmosphere of Substructure 17. As you climb, the voice over the intercom will gradually announce worryingly hazardous things going wrong in the facility.
Caution. Structural stress fractures identified in training chamber 5 scaffolding. Avoid upper platforms until repairs are completed.
She has a glaring similarity to GLaDOS from Valve's Portal series, and further up, takes on a similar antagonistic role.
Warning. Any child outside of the designated employee daycare is assumed to be a periphery instance and will be shot on sight.
Taunting and threatening the player if they don't do as they're told, and promises of cake if they do. This game feels heavily inspired by Portal. Along with a taunting AI and expansive underground facility, you find things that are akin to the drawings of Doug Ratman. Quickly scrawled signs on the walls that guide the player to the easiest path, along with some secrets that paint the picture of someone who has made the climb before us, someone who wants to help us survive and learn the secrets of the facility. This seemingly helpful entity leaves notes and floppy disks with cryptic information and seems to be helping us in our journey. These floppy disks can be viewed at some terminals you will find scattered sparsely across your climb. These disks never give any useful information, only alluding to something big that happened in Substructure 17, I suspect, likely 34 years ago. The terminals that I mentioned can be found at the very few checkpoints along your climb, and they offer useful perks as well as the ability to override a floppy disk and save your game. Basic game mechanic aside, this overriding of a floppy disk is labelled as a biological backup, and an ominous warning is given before flashing images and text fly across the screen. This is yet another piece of information that helps us form a narrative of the potentially unethical practices of those in power at Substructure 17. I think the AI voice over the intercom will have a larger part to play in this story of this game later down the road. At the time of writing this script, White Knuckle is still in early access, meaning the devs plan to add a lot more content down the line. While climbing, you may spot golden roaches that you can pick up as currency. This bug-based economy will let you purchase some items at vending machines dotted around the facility. Climbing past the first checkpoint of the game, you make your way through the pipeworks, inhabited by some bizarre wildlife and the steam vents that I loathe entirely. Past this, there is the ascent, the first major hurdle you have to face, and something akin to a boss fight. As the primordial fluid rises, you take a rusty elevator that stops halfway, and you have to make a precarious climb around the outside of the room, activating 3 buttons to unlock it. One wrong move and it's over. This is one of the most tense parts of the game, but if you manage to activate all 3 buttons and make it back to the elevator, you're not out of the woods yet, as there is a part 2. You have to open the hatch so that the elevator can ascend further, making a tricky climb to activate a singular button. Doing all this while the black goop rises from below. The tension in this sequence will have you on the edge of your seat. This is where the facility's scale is first put on display, showing how truly vast it is, and gives similar feelings of anxiety and wonder that old Aperture did in Portal 2. Ascending in the elevator, you'll be met with another vast chasm filled with spikes and the large concrete structure, Habitation Yellow. For those who played it, this is where the demo ended, but for those who have early access, it's time to journey into Habitation Yellow. Opening the oversized vault doors leads us to a pitch-black elevator shaft where we're given the shittiest torch ever that you have to keep revving so it stays on. You are also given a flare gun which can be used to give a short burst of light or damage the beasties that you'll soon find on the shaft. Making your way up the shaft, you'll encounter these crawling devils who will chase you. While you play with your new stress toy, you can also counter them by either simply out-climbing them or using the flare gun to scare them off. If they do manage to catch you, however, you will be grabbed by their shadow hands and eaten alive. Lovely. Making your way out of this literal hellhole, you'll be met with the stunning view of the haunted pier. This, along with the lack of demonic entities trying to kill you, makes a nice break as you take your time to explore this area. These brick-laid buildings make a stylistic change from the industrial complex we're used to seeing. Perhaps this is where some ex-employees lived. Once again, the atmosphere of this game shines through, with the distant red lights in the void and the echoes over the intercom build this amazing sense of scale. As you soak in the atmosphere, you will eventually have to scale this cliffside town. Using a nearby crane to make the path upwards, making sure not to plummet to your doom, you make your way up to the Delta Labs. Now, while the valve turrets and anomalous activity and laser grids are nothing to scoff at, it is the creatures that lurk in the vents that pose the biggest threat here. These grabby hands, which bear a striking resemblance to the player's grippers, will slowly move through the vents and retreat back into the shadows when looked at, turning this section of the game into something akin to Five Nights at Freddy's. I've never felt so paranoid and stressed in my life, looking down every shaft for those bloody white mitts. Whipping my mouse left and right, keeping your head on a swivel is vital for survival. Failing that, then by God, hang on to any surface you can for dear life, lest you be hastily gobbled up. If you manage to crawl out of these flesh-covered vents, you will come to a bloody sight with a barricaded door covered in skeletons, and you will find out that you have completed the early access campaign. So, after the campaign, what else is there? Well, you can play it again on hard mode, or better yet, Iron Knuckle mode. You'll get no perks this time, it's all up to your own skill as a climber. There are also endless modes for each of the areas in the facility, which may or may not have additional secrets to discover. Personally, I can't get enough of this game, and I'm waiting in anticipation for what the devs decide to add next.